Before humans built cities, before they invented writing, before they even understood farming, they discovered something so powerful that it eventually conquered the entire planet. It wasn't fire. It wasn't intelligence in the way we usually think about it. It wasn't strength. It was something almost invisible, something you can't hold in your hand or point to on a map. It was a story. And once our species figured out how to tell one, nothing on Earth could stop us. Think about that for a second. You are, right now, listening to a story about stories. Your brain is doing something no wolf, no dolphin, no chimpanzee has ever done in the history of life on this planet. And you don't even notice it happening because it feels so natural. That's exactly why it's so powerful. The most dangerous tools are the ones that don't feel like tools at all. Let's start at the beginning, with the brain that learned to imagine. Other animals can absolutely communicate. Wolves howl to warn their pack of danger. Bees perform an intricate waggle dance to tell their hive exactly where the best flowers are, down to the distance and direction. Dolphins use complex clicks and whistles that some researchers believe function almost like names. These are real, sophisticated systems. Nobody is saying animals are simple. But here's the wall none of them cross. No animal, as far as we can tell, sits down and tells another animal about something that isn't happening right now. A wolf cannot warn its pack about a threat that existed 3 winters ago and might return. A bee cannot describe a flower field that no longer exists, or one that might exist someday if the colony moves. Their communication is tied to the present, to the immediate, to what is real and observable in this exact moment. A human can do something almost supernatural by comparison. You can talk about yesterday. You can talk about tomorrow. You can describe a hero who never existed, breathe life into him, give him a name, a flaw, a triumph. You can invent an entire kingdom with mountains that were never climbed and rivers that never flowed. And another human can hear you describe it and picture it as if they had seen it themselves. That is not a small trick. That is one of the strangest, most powerful abilities any species has ever developed. And this ability didn't just make us more interesting around a campfire, it rewired the entire trajectory of our evolution. Now let's talk about why this ability wasn't just entertainment. It was a weapon. Imagine 2 early human tribes living side by side, tens of thousands of years ago. One tribe communicates only in facts. Watch that ridge. That plant is poisonous. That animal is dangerous. Useful information, but flat, disconnected, easy to forget, easy to ignore. The other tribe does something different. They tell a story. Not just the tiger is dangerous, but a story about the tiger that always attacks near the bend in the river. The one that took the hunter who ignored the warning. The one whose eyes gleamed in the dark before it struck. Not just this plant helps wounds heal, but a story about the ancestor who was dying, who ate a strange root out of desperation, and who lived to tell the tale, and passed that knowledge down through his children. Which tribe do you think remembers the danger better? Which tribe do you think survives longer? Stories are simply easier for the brain to hold on to than isolated facts. A list of instructions fades. A narrative sticks. There's a beginning, a struggle, a consequence, an emotional hook that glues the information into memory. This is why, even today, you probably remember fairy tales from your childhood in vivid detail, but you'd struggle to remember a list of 10 random facts you read once in a textbook. Our brains were never built to memorize spreadsheets. They were built to remember stories. This is also exactly why myths survived for thousands of years, passed down mouth to mouth, generation after generation, long before anyone could write a single word. A myth about a flood, about a trickster god, about a great hunter, wasn't just superstition. It was often a survival manual disguised as entertainment, a way to encode real, life-saving knowledge into a form the human brain was actually wired to retain. Which brings us to something even stranger, something scientists have only recently begun to understand. The brain doesn't just listen to stories, it lives them. When you hear someone describe climbing a mountain, struggling for breath, gripping cold rock with numb fingers, the regions of your brain associated with movement and physical sensation become more active, almost as if some small part of you is climbing too. When someone describes the smell of smoke, or rain on hot pavement, or bread baking in an oven, the olfactory regions of your brain, the parts tied to actual smell, light up in response. even though there's no scent in the room at all. Your brain isn't just processing the sounds of language when you listen to a story, it's simulating the experience. In a very real, measurable sense, a part of you is running through the events alongside the storyteller, feeling an echo of the fear, the relief, the joy, the tension. This is why a well-told story can make your heart race, even though you're sitting perfectly still on a couch. This is why you can cry during a movie about people who never existed. Your brain, on some level, doesn't fully distinguish between an experience and a vividly imagined one. This single fact explains almost everything about why storytelling became so central to human survival. If hearing about danger activates some of the same brain regions as experiencing danger, then a story becomes a way to learn from an experience you never actually had. You can learn what a predator's ambush feels like without ever being ambushed yourself. You can learn the cost of betrayal without ever being betrayed. Stories let humans download experience directly from one mind into another, without either person needing to risk their life to gain the lesson. No other species on this planet has ever built a system like that, and once we had it, everything accelerated. Because stories didn't just help individuals survive, they built entire civilizations. Think about what actually holds a religion together across millions, sometimes billions, of people who will never meet each other. It isn't a shared meal or a shared bloodline. It's a shared story, a narrative about creation, about right and wrong, about what happens after death, repeated so consistently that strangers across entire continents feel connected by it. Think about what holds a nation together. A flag is just cloth. A border is just an invisible line agreed upon by people who mostly aren't watching it. What actually binds millions of citizens who will never shake hands is a shared story about who they are, where they came from, and what they stand for. Even something as seemingly logical and mathematical as money is, underneath it all, a story. A dollar bill or a coin has no real value on its own. It's paper, or metal, or increasingly, just numbers on a screen. It has value only because billions of people collectively believe in the same story. The story that says this piece of paper can be exchanged for food, for shelter, for safety. The moment enough people stop believing that story, the money becomes worthless overnight. That has happened in real economic collapses throughout history. The paper didn't change. The story did. This is, honestly, one of the strangest superpowers a species could ever develop. Human beings can cooperate in massive numbers with total strangers, people they will never meet, whose faces they will never see, purely because they share a story. Ants and bees cooperate in huge numbers too, but only with their genetic relatives, only within their own colony. A human can walk into a foreign country, hand a stranger a piece of paper, and receive food in return, purely on the strength of a shared belief. No other animal on Earth organizes itself this way. It's not our muscles that built empires, it's our narratives. And you might think, surely in the modern world, with satellites and computers and artificial intelligence, we've outgrown all of this. Surely the ancient campfire instinct has been replaced by something more sophisticated. But look closer, and you'll notice the technology has changed far more than the underlying instinct. The videos that go viral today aren't the ones packed with the most raw information. They're the ones with the best story. A beginning that hooks you, a middle that builds tension, an ending that pays it off or twists it. Movies that earn billions of dollars in theaters are, structurally, doing exactly what a tribal elder was doing around a fire 50,000 years ago. Introducing a hero, placing them in danger, and resolving that danger in a way that satisfies something deep in the audience's mind. Novels work the same way. Video games, stripped of their graphics and their code, are often just interactive stories, letting the player become the hero instead of merely listening to one. Even advertisements have learned this lesson. The most effective commercials rarely just list a product's features. They tell a tiny story, a person with a problem, a product that transforms their life, an emotional payoff at the end. Companies spend enormous amounts of money not because facts don't matter, but because they've learned, whether consciously or not, that facts wrapped in a story travel further and stick longer than facts alone. The delivery system for stories has evolved almost beyond recognition, from spoken word around a fire, to scrolls, to printed books, to film, to a glowing rectangle in your pocket. But the brain receiving those stories is, in almost every meaningful way, the same brain our ancestors carried across savannas and ice ages tens of thousands of years ago. We built rockets and skyscrapers and vaccines. And underneath all of it, we're still the same species that huddled together and passed down survival lessons wrapped in narrative. So here's where all of this leaves us. For hundreds of thousands of years, long before anyone could write a single letter, stories have been quietly traveling across generations, carried in memory, in voice, in the space between one mind and another. They've transmitted knowledge that no individual could have discovered alone. They've created heroes worth imitating and villains worth avoiding. They've bound total strangers into nations, religions, economies, and cultures so large that no single person could ever meet everyone who shares in them. And every single time you listen to a story, whether it's a movie, a podcast, a book, or even a video just like this one, your brain is quietly activating the exact same ancient capacity that allowed our species to spread across every continent on Earth and dominate a planet full of animals that were, in many cases, faster, stronger, and sharper clawed than we ever were. We didn't win because we were the strongest species. We didn't even win purely because we were the smartest, not in the narrow sense of raw calculation. We won because we were the only species capable of imagining something that wasn't there, describing it to another mind, and getting that mind to believe it, feel it, and act on it. So maybe intelligence was never really humanity's greatest superpower. Maybe it was something quieter, something that doesn't look like a weapon at all, something that feels more like entertainment than survival. Maybe the greatest superpower our species has ever possessed was simply this: the ability to tell a story, and the ability of another human being, somewhere across time and space, to believe it